106.7 Light FM.
106.7 Light FM, Cubby and Christine. It's our big Go Gold campaign for Hassenfeld Children's Hospital. And joining us right now is Nashua Khalil. And you are a senior pediatric physical therapist at Hassenfeld Children's Hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. Thank
you for
having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, what exactly, I mean, your title kind of says what you do, but tell me in detail what you do.
So I work in, as you know, the Pediatric Oncology Center. I work primarily with kids with cancer. And a lot of, we consider physical therapy an important piece of their treatment, in that just as important as, you know, the chemotherapies these kids are getting, the radiation treatment, the immunotherapy, sometimes the surgeries, we think of physical therapy as an important counterpart, in that, as you know, these treatments are very sometimes toxic to the body and can cause weakness and all sorts of bad side effects that we don't want. And physical therapy we think of as a way to rebuild the body and reclaim the body, so that kids can participate and enjoy regular kid activities, and reclaim the parts of them that have been ravished by some of these toxic life-saving treatment.
And Nashua, what drew you to this? Because physical therapists, you guys save the day. The work you do is incredible, but especially that you're working with children who were facing the challenges of cancer. How did you know this was your calling?
So it's a two-part story. I was first drawn to physical therapy in general, just because of my own personal experience, having grown up with a disability and needing physical therapy. I grew up with some nerve damage to my left arm, so I had weakness on that side and needed physical therapy all throughout my childhood. And so I learned early on the importance of physical therapy in not just regaining the strength and function and ability to participate in things my peers were participating in, but also just the mindset of persevering in the face of adversity. And I think that's really what drew me to the field. In terms of getting into working with kids with cancer, that was actually unexpected for me. It happened because my immediate supervisor, who was working at the time with the population, went on maternity leave a little bit earlier. And so I was afforded the opportunity to take her place. And it was pretty early on that I knew that this was going to be where I want to be. This was going to be my niche. I think probably within the first 2 weeks, I have an example in mind that comes to mind. I was working with a teenager who had a type of bone cancer called osteosarcoma. And we were working towards her goal of returning to her cheerleading squad in high school. And we're working on some shoulder exercises, and she takes a break and she looks at me and she tells me, you know, I forget I have cancer when I'm working out with you. And to me, that's just everything, because that's our goal. We want our kids to really thrive throughout their treatment. And yeah, that was me 7 years ago, and I don't see myself going anywhere else anytime soon.
Yeah, wow. You know, we know Hassenfeld sees like over 2,000 kids with cancer every year. And you just told a fun story right there about someone, like a child that really kind of needed you. Is that an example? Do you have other like examples of maybe someone that surprised you during their progress?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's so many examples that come to mind, but one in particular that really resonates is of an 11-year-old boy who I met. We'll call him Romeo just to protect his identity. And also he was such a love bug, so it's fitting. But Romeo came to NYU after having some trouble standing and walking at school. He just had a lot of trouble all of a sudden standing and walking. So he comes to the hospital, his parents take him to the hospital, and he was diagnosed with a form of blood cancer called acute myeloid leukemia. And he had a rare presentation in that one of the tumors was actually compressing his spinal cord, which was the reason he was having all this trouble standing and walking, because of the weakness in his legs. And, you know, when I first met Romeo, he needed two people just to sit up at the edge of the bed. And we eventually worked on standing and eventually walking and returned to running and jumping, all these skills that a typical 11-year-old should be doing. I remember distinctly playing a game of ice hockey in the hospital hallways, because this was a kid whose most of his treatment, unfortunately, was in the hospital setting. He was practically living there for months, sometimes 3 months at a time. And, you know, we found some hospital equipment, old crutches for the hockey sticks, tissue box for the puck. And we played a game of ice hockey just to help motivate him get out of bed and work with us.
Wow.
And it just, yeah, and it was a lot of fun. And in that moment, you know, he forgot all the sadness of just living in the hospital. And it's wonderful because, you know, if you meet Romeo today, you would never even know what he's been through. You would never even know he had cancer.
That's incredible. And that's just one of the stories of the amazing work that you're doing at Hassenfeld Children's Hospital. So if you could share with our Light FM listeners why this is a great time to give to the hospital.
Sure. I think what I would like your listeners to know is that there's just so many moving pieces to make a place like Hassenfeld work. And a lot of these pieces are not actually billable services. A lot of our services are pro bono, which means we really do rely on these donations to help kids like Romeo receive psychotherapy throughout his treatment, you know, to help him cope and navigate this new life that all of a sudden happened to him and he had to deal with. And I think as a listener, if you want to be a part of this story in helping these kids not just survive, but also thrive, I think there's nothing better than that.
Well, you can make a difference today for the kids with cancer at Hassenfeld Children's Hospital. All you got to do is go to lightfm.com/go gold, and you can give right now. lightfm.com/go gold. Nashua, thank you so much for all you're doing. You really are an inspiration.
106.7 Lights FM.